Welcome to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. This show is about Plymouth County real estate. We're going to be talking about the numbers in April. This show is being taped in May. I have a great guest in the second segment of the show, Cain of the Cain Group, William Raveis Realtors, talking about the real estate market in Plymouth County. Then we're going to talk about some of Plymouth County and Plymouth Colony history. So let's go right to the numbers. The first image you're going to see is of deeds. Deeds dropped a little bit in the month of April. 717 sales in April, a little less than the 725 in March. However, 16% less than last year. 2021 was the highest number of recordings at the registry since 2005, so that will happen. Year to date, we're down 9% in terms of deeds. You're going to see an image of sales for all 27 communities in Plymouth County from January through April. Plymouth has recorded the largest number of sales, Brockton being second, but every community has had activity. The next image you're going to see is of mortgages. Our mortgages have had a drop over the last year or so. Many people were refinancing last year. As soon as the rates ticked up, a lot of that dropped off. There are 1,891 mortgages recorded in April, less than the 2,158 in March, and we're down 43% back to last April. In year-to-date, mortgages are down 45%. Still a lot of people taking out mortgages to buy homes, but not so much to refinance their current loan. We always follow foreclosure issues very closely, particularly since the meltdown in 2008. There was a moratorium in place during the early COVID days, and that has been removed, but it still has impacted the number of foreclosure deeds that are recorded. There are only 9 foreclosure deeds recorded in April of this year, a little higher than the 8 recorded in March. However, 50% more than during the moratorium when there were 6 foreclosure deeds in April. But year to date, they're up because it was so low during the moratorium. And foreclosure notices are a little bit different. A foreclosure notice is a document we receive when someone's facing difficulty, usually for non-payment, inability to make payments for a variety of reasons. There were 42 foreclosure notices recorded in April, more than the 39 in March, 200% more than last April. Again, the moratorium removal has had an impact, and 170% more year to date, and you'll see that in that image. You'll also see a listing of foreclosures and orders of notice for all 27 communities in Plymouth County, and as you can see, there are still a lot of zeros, both in foreclosure deeds and foreclosure notices. I always like to highlight that we offer a free property fraud alert if something gets recorded on your property that wasn't intended. You can check that because you'd get an email. I advise everyone to sign up for it. It's free. And if you go to our website and go from the home page to resources, you can see it listed there under fraud alert, and you can sign up and put your email in and get that notification. Again, we've had a huge increase in electronic recording of documents over the internet from COVID and post-COVID. We're averaging about 80% for recorded land and 50% for land court land. I have a great guest coming on the show, Cain of the Cain Realty Group, William Raveis Real Estate, and she will be talking about what is happening in the Plymouth County real estate market, along with a lot of technology changes that realtors have achieved. See you in the next segment. Welcome back to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. This segment of the show is educational in nature. We've had commercial real estate brokers, surveyors, appraisers, and we've had a lot of great realtors. I have a repeat great realtor with me here today. I have Eileen Cain of the Cain Group and William Raveis Realtors. Welcome back, Eileen.
Thank you so much, John.
So why don't we take a couple minutes for you to explain to our viewers how you got into the real estate business.
I got into the real estate business almost 20 years now. Sort of a mentee of a gentleman you know, Paul Clancy, owned his own brokerage for many, many years. And yeah, it's been great opportunity.
So let's talk about, we had a conversation earlier about the changes that you've seen over those years in terms of the technology and how that's changed your job.
Yeah, we were just talking about that, right? So old school real estate was, you had the MLS book, which felt good and felt enough, maps and things like that. And real fast forward, as of the past couple of years, mostly due to the pandemic, everything has gone digital, faster, more opportunity. Social media presence is different now. Most buyers and sellers can identify a property. A seller can get a gauge on what their home could potentially be worth just by simply looking at the online portals available before they even have the agent out there. They have some type of a gauge on what it could potentially be worth. And then we'll go in and either give an uptick on that price or have to scale it back depending on whether or not they've done work and what have you. Buyers, same thing. The school systems they're available online. They can do satellite searches. They can go in a home by virtual tour and then, again, call their agent to say, how do I write this offer up? What do I do to get this house? And create that teamwork with agent and lender. Very, very different.
In the next step, the purchase and sale agreement, signing and going back and forth on that is not as complicated as it once was.
Again, a lot of it will be done through email communication. Attorneys can speak with buyers and meet with buyers through Zoom. Zoom has saved us. We can negotiate. I've met a lot of my buyer and seller transactions online through Zoom, not even in person, before meeting them. And the same thing with running that real estate transaction from start to finish.
Yeah, so I get asked all the time about, with our operation, the Registry of Deeds, how much did it change during COVID, and do I think it'll ever go back? And I say it changed incredible amount.
Yeah.
Over 80% of our documents are sent in by e-recording on the recorded land side, and over 50% on the land court side, which is a little more complicated.
Yeah.
And I don't think it'll ever go back.
Because you can do it without it.
Right.
The old times of having a buyer and seller in a room at a closing table, whether it be celebrated or tumultuous, not all sales are easy, they're no longer there at the table together like they used to. Not allowed for a couple of years, simply not allowed. But they may not go back to that, tipping the champagne together.
And in our case, we were always trying to convince lawyers that do the closings how simple it was to do e-recording. And a lot of them resisted until they couldn't do it any other way.
Right.
And I think COVID's had an impact on what we do everywhere.
And will. Yeah. It showed us that we can. I do miss the human component a little bit of that celebratory at the end of a transaction, but people are so busy, John, and they just don't want to be bothered. The deal is done. Sometimes buyers and sellers, they'll never see each other. Right. They'll never physically see each other. Keys are left or transferred.
They don't pass over the keys anymore.
No.
So we talked about you and how you get into real estate. Let's talk about your company a little bit.
William Raveis. So Bill Raveis founded this company 44 years ago in a small office by himself, and he's built it up to 9 states, 4,000 agents. We have a mortgage division, We could do everything in-house. We have an insurance division, which they can't be beat. And it's just fantastic that I can have a team right under one umbrella, so to speak. So we have 42 offices or 44 offices just in Massachusetts, which is, I can walk into any offices anytime and sell someone's house down to Plymouth, to Brookline, to Boston, to, and the mortgage division, second to none.
So let's talk a little bit about the marketplace and where it's come over the last couple of years, because it's a different marketplace now than it was in 2021.
Yes, definitely. What would you like to know, the buy side or the sell side?
Well, I think I'd just like to, you're talking to people out there that maybe in a house they want to downsize, or people that are looking to get into the marketplace. The state of the market generally, I think is...
Yeah, robust
Yeah.
for all. Some agents define it as crazy, but that doesn't really, crazy how. So yes, we have low inventory, which has driven prices up, which people will say it's a seller's market because of it. Interest rates still, although they've bumped, historically low, it's still very inexpensive to borrow money. So it makes it a buyer's market. Is it an investor's market? You have to, for the buy side, you have to be patient. You may write up 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 offers until you get the home that you want. Still don't settle. Don't settle because you're dying to get into something, because you're going to spend some time there. And sellers, the prices have increased so much that there's great opportunity to cash out and take the equity that they've earned over the years.
Yeah, I don't think people have an understanding of the history of mortgage rates and how 20 years ago they were double digits.
Yeah.
And this is a slight increase relative to that.
Yes.
It certainly affected us in terms of the number of refinances that we've been recording. But as far as purchasing a house, you do it when you can and when you have to and when the opportunity presents itself.
Yeah. Should I wait? Should I go? Should I stay? What do I do? I get that question all the time. Oh my gosh, I wish I bought last year. I could have locked in lower, but what about next year?
Right.
There's no indication of a crash. There's no indication of a big adjustment in sale prices. The interest rates will inch up again. So there's no better time like the present to make a real estate transaction if you really want to be somewhere, or if you really want to do that. Rental market's high, and rental market is slim as far as availability on homes as well. So that's the state of the market. The most difficult part of a transaction right now is the sell-buy. So I'm going to sell my home, but I need to buy something. We need to make sure that that agreement is contractually sound for the seller, so there's not a misstep in between. So we're looking for patient buyers sometimes. A buyer who will give us a rent back and let us stay. A buyer who will offer extensions out for a certain amount of time to let us find something. That is not as easy as it used to be. So that part's difficult.
So what percentage of sales would actually have you stay in place for a period of time?
Higher than you think.
Wow.
Higher than you think.
Yeah.
Because the buyer says, at least I've got it. And there's no indication that there's going to be more. I'm locked in at an interest rate for a certain amount of time, and they're kicking up
I haven't heard that.
more than you think. Leasebacks or use and occupancies. Leaseback, use and occupancy are 2 terms you're hearing a lot.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's have your advice for a prospective seller out there. What do they need to do to prepare themselves to get the best value for their property?
Despite the fact that, again, inventory is slim, you still have to present to the best of your ability. The cheapest thing you could do is put in paint, but again, you still need this to qualify for an appraiser. If you're looking for a high price, it's got to be near perfect. Appraiser's still going to come in and be the deciding factor. I'll tell you whether or not that sale price will exist by what I see. But we're seeing appraisers come in. For the most part,
So that would relate to a buyer too.
Yes.
Because obviously if they're going to get that loan, the lender has to be certain that it's covered by the value.
Yes.
In some cases, bidding over asking price.
Most.
Yeah, so explain what you would tell for that person to prepare.
Well, we're seeing another term we're hearing, which is something we didn't hear years back, appraisal gap. Mr. Seller, I will give you $550 for your house. If the appraiser's lender says it's $520, I'll fill the gap with cash. Just got another one in today on a listing that I have. They're filling the gap with cash.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's, again, making that seller feel warm and fuzzy about this is actually going to go through.
So before you talk to a potential buyer, what do you tell them they need to do?
They need to make sure to talk to a lender.
Yeah.
Talk to a lender, make sure that your, report is, first of all, correct. There could be something on there that needs to be dealt with. Yeah, a credit report. And talk about all the financing opportunities. There's a whole variable, big portfolio of different opportunity to finance. And just speak with a really educated, well-known lender. There's a lot of lenders out there. You've got to talk to the right one. They're not all built the same.
So what is the physical manifestation that they would get from them before they talk to you?
Well, the pre-approval.
Right.
Sometimes we're getting a certified pre-approval. A pre-qualification is not enough. Pre-qualification says we just had a conversation. A pre-approval, Raveis does a certified pre-approval. They check everything. The income, credit, everything's been done. The only thing you have to do is underwrite it, and it's done. So the seller can say, I feel comfortable.
That's your lending company you're talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, well, all lenders,
Okay.
should do, I'm not sure if they do a certified, but certainly we do that, just to make sure, and it matters, when you get 31 offers, and you're looking at everybody, and you're trying to, okay, you're done, and you're down to your 5, you look at the strength of the buyer, how much they're putting down, what terms they're asking for, who the agent is, you're married to this agent for 6-7 weeks, who the lender is, to really squeeze down who your choice is.
So we talked about the changing technology for the realtors and the public access to do more things in advance. What has changed recently with the appraisals?
Appraisals still come in for the most part, unless it's really, I've seen a couple of drive-by appraisals, but that's only if there's a huge, strong deposit.
Okay.
And otherwise, yes, they'll still,
go in the building
come in
and
and yes.
kick the tires. And
Yeah. They'll ask for the real estate agent to bring their comps as well,
Okay.
and we'll all try and justify the price.
Right. And that's issued in a report for the lender primarily?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes, just for the lender. Yep.
So I always like to have a conversation about the difficult market for first-time home buyers.
Yes.
And tips you may be able to give people out there that are sitting on a deposit, maybe not, a deposit that might get a seller's attention,
Right.
but are just looking. I mean, the so-called starter homes
Yeah,
are non-existent
Yeah.
these days. People aren't even building them
Right.
like they did.
Yeah, the entry-level home.
And I know, talking to a number of young people, how frustrating it is that they're stuck in rental when they could be accumulating wealth by owning a home.
Yeah. So I just had a multiple offer situation where we did pick the FHA. We did. I was comfortable with the complex. I knew it would pass the qualifications of FHA. The people were strong. I talked to the lender. They looked good otherwise. They just wanted to utilize that program. They had lost out on other offers. They had. So, but again, it's going to be a multiple, you've got to hire a team. You have to have somebody who's going to really negotiate and communicate that you are the sure thing. It's natural for a seller to look at somebody with a stronger deposit, but they don't always pick them. It depends on who your seller is. It depends, maybe the seller was under agreement a couple of times, it fell apart. It depends on the discussion with the agency. Be patient. It can happen.
So this show is being taped near the middle of May. Why don't you tell us what you think is going to happen over the summer months?
With inventory or interest rates?
General activity.
General. We had a late start. We are now seeing activity come on. It is not abundant. It just is. But not abundant. So we expect for that to continue. More opportunity, more homes. I've seen a couple of price adjustments. You see a house on the market for 14 days and you go, what's wrong with it? Nothing. So, you know, again, you'll see more come on. Interest rates are going to stay around the mid-5s, maybe tick up to 6 depending on credit. Nothing dramatic over the summer, but more opportunity for sure. We'll be busy through the end of the year. We had a slow start this quarter. Slow start.
So you believe as we get into the fall, through the end of the calendar year, things will still be at the current pace that it's getting to now?
Yes, yeah. We're not going to see it again in abundance because I've got a lot of people who want to sell, but where do they go? If they haven't identified down the Cape or in Florida or the Carolinas or wherever, I've got a gentleman that's going to move to Michigan only because his son had triplets. And he's like, I don't want to go there, but he's going. So that'll be a sale. So again, you know, we'll see some inventory coming on, daily inventory coming on.
So there's been a lot of stories around about people changing the way they buy homes because of the remote work issues. Do you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So again, you know, you can do it all without even seeing, you know, somebody.
I'm talking about people buying a home to be remote.
Oh, to be remote. Oh, yeah. So looking for office space, right? So again, it was, you know, the city prices was so high because people wanted to get close to the city, in the city, remove that commute. No. COVID happened. Get out. The condo living the tight, too close to suburb, driving those prices up, and the ability to work at home. That's going to stay.
So that is still
that is going to be the
on.
norm. Yeah. As Jessica was just mentioning, there's, you know, hybrid opportunity, but for the most part, people will probably not go back in full time for the foreseeable future. Because why?
So can you share your contact information with our viewers?
Yeah, sure. Eileen Cain, William Raveis Real Estate. Eileen.Cain at Raveis.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and our business page of Raveis. 508-254-6865 is my cell.
And your top tip to buyers is what?
Go in as strong as you can. Doesn't mean overpay. It doesn't mean just look at your terms. Look at your terms. Do pre-inspections. Hire an agent who has been, you know, doing this, who can look from almost an inspector eye, and just don't settle. It's going to come. It's going to come.
And
Be
your
patient.
top tip to sellers?
Sell like it matters. Sell like you're you're one of 100. You still have to have that house in pretty pristine to get even more. Your equity is important, especially when people hit the retirement age. It's your biggest asset, one of.
Well, thank you once again. You always do a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's always good to see you.
Great.
Appreciate it.
So welcome back to the Register's Report. This segment of the show, we do something a little different, but I first want to thank Eileen Cain of Cain Realty Group, William Raveis Real Estate, for the great job she did in describing the real estate market as it currently is, and a little bit about how buyers and sellers should be approaching this unique marketplace. As always, she does a good job, and very happy to have her on as a guest. Again, in this segment of the show, we always do something a little lighter in nature. The holidays for the month: Star Wars Day on the 4th, Cinco de Mayo on the 5th, National Nurses Day on the 6th, Mother's Day on the 8th, National Chocolate Chip Day, National Rescue Dog Day on the 20th, Armed Forces Day on the 21st, National Wine Day on the 25th, National Burger Day on the 28th, and Memorial Day coming up on the 30th. So let's talk about a couple of our notable records, one of which relates to the holidays. There was a woman who worked at a place in Whitman, and she was one of the owners. It was called the Toll House. It was built in 1709 and was a haven for road-weary travelers. They would stay in that property and they would eat at that property. Kenneth and Ruth Wakefield purchased the Toll House in 1930. So one day in 1933, Ruth ran out of baker's chocolate while making a cookie. She decided then to cut up some Nestle semi-sweet chocolate bars and put them in the cookie, and it was so well received, this accidental discovery, that she continued it forever. In fact, it got so well known it became known across the country as chocolate chip cookies. An agreement was made by her with Nestle that that recipe would be printed on the back of those wrappers, which are still there today. Many famous people had dined at the Toll House. Unfortunately, it burnt down on New Year's Eve in 1984. If you buy it, Nestle semi-sweet morsels today, you'll see that recipe. But in 1997, the chocolate chip cookie was designated the official cookie of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The next notable record, and I don't really have talked about this very much over the years, but there's a beautiful brick building as you go up to Abington Center. It is called the Dyer Memorial Library. It is the home of the Historical Society of Old Abington. It was a gift of Marietta Dyer, and it has been a free public facility focusing on local history since May of 1932. Again, Marietta Dyer bequeathed the land in money for the building and erection of that building. Many displays are in that building related to Old Abington. Old Abington also included what is now the town of Whitman and the town of Rockland, but there are a lot of early maps and Civil War photographs, and it is a great source of information to visit. They celebrated their 75th anniversary in 2007, and it's an important resource to local historians. Next notable record, and particularly with all the issues going on with the Supreme Court as we speak, there was a gentleman who lived in the town of Mattapoisett that was a member of the Massachusetts Supreme Court and the United States Supreme Court. He fought in the Civil War, born in Boston, was injured 3 times, and he enlisted in the Massachusetts militia. He saw a lot of action. He owned a summer home in Mattapoisett that they purchased in 1873. He was an attorney in Boston. He became a legal scholar and law professor at Harvard University. In 1882, he became a justice of the Supreme Court of Massachusetts. But in 1902, he was named to the United States Supreme Court by President Teddy Roosevelt. He was unanimously, unlike these times, confirmed to the United States Supreme Court by the United States Senate and served for 30 years. He was known as the Great Dissenter, meaning that he usually wrote a dissent from the opinions of the court. But he retired from the court at 90 years old. He died in 1935, and he's buried beside his wife Fanny in Arlington National Cemetery, but certainly a connection to Plymouth County. And we always do a Plymouth Colony record. Plymouth Colony was founded on the arrival of the Mayflower in 1620. We just finished recently, within the last year, a couple of years or so, the celebration of the 400th anniversary of that arrival. And one of the records during the colonial time was a record relative to private property rights, which they decided in 1623 that to go from common property rights to private property rights, certainly a major impact on Plymouth Colony and the country. But this is another one that's kind of related to it. There was a decision in 1627 when they divided the household into 12 groups, but they also divided the cattle. And it's an incredible story of the past that the cows and the goats will be equally divided for private ownership between all people. That certainly was the trend of the colony. That certainly has been the trend of the country. Private property rights for land, private property rights for agriculture purposes, and where we are today. I want to thank Lorna Green Baker and Christine Richards from my office for their help in putting this show together. And I want to thank Mike Simmons here at Brockton Cable Access for producing this show with me. We share this information with cable providers throughout Plymouth County, and I hope you all have a great summer. Thank you. See you next month.